I remember an episode of Mania that I had that had absolutely devastating effects on me and people around me just did not know what to do. I only had one person actually show up and visit me in the hospital. What happened was I felt that work was just too much and I started to get more and more overwhelmed, and without thinking about the consequences, I quit right on the spot. And with no job, no money, I was living in New York City. I wasn't near my family. So right away, I got rid of my car and parked it out at my uncle's house so I wouldn't have to pay for the insurance on the car. And I really didn't know what I was going to do. And I was just overwhelmed and completely devastated and just depressed. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I became a self proclaimed genius. I was going to apply for the MacArthur Award, which is given to people that are considered geniuses. And that went on for about 30 days. I was seeing a shrink at the time. I wasn't even paying for therapy and just assuming that it was free because I was a genius. And eventually, what happened was I crashed, and I crashed into an anxiety attack, and that anxiety attack lasted for 7 days or so. At which point, I went to the emergency room at the NYU hospital in New York City and was admitted. I stayed there for about 3 weeks with, of course, no money, no health insurance. No way to pay for anything and nowhere to go when I got out. And what happened was, fortunately, in the meantime, I was approved for unemployment compensation, and at NYU, they got me approved for Medicaid. So I had both unemployment, which is $1,600 a month, and then I had Medicaid, which pays pretty much for everything regarding your medical expenses. So even though the combination of those two is actually not allowed in the United States, it worked out in just that type of fashion where I was able to pay my bills and keep a house over my head, but also go to see the counselors and get the medication and go to the psychiatrist and whatnot that I needed. And that went on for an entire year of my life in New York City where I didn't work and I just basically recovered. So, this illness is not a joke, and I don't know why I would think I was a genius. I don't really think of myself as a genius right now. I think of myself as a guy in the world that's just trying to get by, that has a certain handicap. But being really, really, really high, it might feel good at the time, but what happens is eventually you crash. And you crash into depression, or you crash into anxiety, or you crash into both anxiety and depression. And when I showed up at that hospital, all I did was ask them to inject me with enough Ativan to make me fall asleep for a week. At which point they said, I need to get upstairs. I'm out of control. I need help. And, when I went to the psych ward, I did have one friend that came to visit me and was very supportive. And my parents were also supportive and was seeing my illness as just a biological problem, just an illness that anyone else could have, any high cholesterol, anything else. So that was really helpful for me. But the experience of living on Medicaid and living on unemployment is something that I could go into for hours, because basically what happens is Medicaid approves everything and they pay for everything. And the funny part, as someone that's insolvent that has no money, you can get Medicaid, but if you earn over a certain amount a month, you can't. So I was uneligible for Medicaid because of my unemployment compensation. But what I think happened was my Medicaid was approved first, and then my unemployment second, and no one ever checked the records on that. And so I was able to actually live and support myself, which is absolutely amazing. But the sad part is that in this country, if you lose your job, there is no health insurance for you. You have to call a company and pay out of the ass to have some sort of medical treatment. And today, healthcare is a lot more accessible because of the Obamacare, which makes it so that mental illness is actually covered. But I remember when my unemployment ran out and I had to buy health insurance and my Medicaid ran out, the only health insurance I was eligible for didn't cover any mental health whatsoever, and I was absolutely stuck. So I do think that overall the country is moving in the right direction.